The high-speed lab mixture slowly came to a halt. A chime sounded, signaling the end of the cycle. Crimson liquid began to flow from the bottom of the mixture into the glass pipette. Attached to it was the base of the mixture. Dr. Amy Hall, known to the world as its large rouge geneticist, an over-enthusiastic cuddle buddy collector, Amy giggled as she opened the valve with the pipette and drained the crimson liquid into several vials designed for the hypnogun. Behind her, thousands of animal eyes watched from their cages while she worked. "Well," she said, holding up one to the light, "it's not quite complete yet, but at least I've got the original formula. Now, if it works, we'll be halfway there." She took one of the vials and inserted it into the hypnogun. Then she walked across the lab to the cage of ferrets that were sitting on the workbench. The ferrets bounced and chittered as Amy approached them. Amy grinned. "Yes, and Mommy's glad to see you too." She cooed and opened up the cage. The watch on her wrist immediately got the ferret's attention, and the rodents began nipping at it and wrapping themselves around her arm. She giggled again and grabbed one and pulled it out of the cage, held it gently but firmly. "Okay, I don't think this will hurt," she said to the ferret. She raised the hypno-gun and prepared to pull the trigger. And at that point, Kim Possible crashed through the skylight of the warehouse laboratory, kicked the hypno-gun out of Amy's hand. "All right, Amy, drop the ferret and put your hands on your head," Kim said firmly, glancing around, noticing the elderly leather-bound notebook on one of the benches. "The British government is very interested in getting their property back." "Kim Possible!" Amy screeched. "Why do you always have to show up and wreck my fun?" "Because that's what I do," Kim answered. "Now, are you going to come quietly, or do we have to do this the usual way?" Amy didn't reply but threw a lever, revealing a giant mutant tarantula hidden inside the genetic zapper machine. 8-legged dog-headed, monstrously yipped obnoxiously as it scuttled across the lab towards Kim. Kim's eyes widened. "Oh, that's just sick and wrong," she said at the moment. Ron Stoppable landed on the floor next to her face first. "Ow," he said, getting to his feet. "I really need to remember to ask Wade for more grapple cord. I'm always running that." "That is just so sick and wrong," Ron interrupted himself as the tarantula began crawling obnoxiously. "Focus, Ron," Kim snapped. "You get the other animals out of here. I'll deal with Fido." "I'm on it, KP." Ron dashed across the lab towards the master cage release switch, but it was taken down by an impressive flying kick from Amy. The two rolled across the lab floor and crashed into the wall. "You are not going to let my sweet little friends loose," Amy said angrily, slapping at Ron with her hands. "I'm so sick and tired of the two of you, ruining everything. I swear, if only you were—" Amy's voice trailed off when she got an evil grin on her face, and she got up off of Ron and began running for the hypno-gun laying on the floor. As Ron got to his feet, noticed where she was headed, and quickly threw the release switch. The cage to the doors and a herd of everything from stray cats to dogs to otters and ostriches began dashing madly through the lab. Ron then looked at the chaos and hand-wad through the look down, and upon one of his leg pockets, where his pet naked mole rat, Rufus, lived. "What do you think, buddy? Too much?" he asked. Rufus popped his head out of Ron's pocket, glanced at the scene, and then back up at Ron. "Way too much," he chittered. Meanwhile, Amy had reached for the hypno-gun and was holding it in triumph. "Ooh, this should be interesting. I wonder if Monty and Dr. Draken would be interested in seeing this." "Ah!" The hour came from as Amy suddenly found herself buried in hundreds of gleaming guinea pigs and gerbils and other rodents, making a mad dash to the escape lab. The hypno-gun flew from her grip and into the air, bouncing off the walls. All of this was going on. Kim was busy trying not to get bitten by the giant chihuahua head or spear-like hairs of the tarantula body being hurled at her. She leaped into one of the many computer terminals surrounding the room and pulled a grapple gun from the holster on her leg. She took the aim and fired it straight into the ceiling. "If it worked for Luke Skywalker," she said, before kicking it off and swinging it towards the spear tarantula. The mutant monster snapped at Kim as she swung down, and its legs, the tarantula, keep trying to keep up. but with the swinging teenager, it couldn't negotiate its legs fast enough to keep up. In just a few short seconds, Kim landed on the floor with the tarantula's legs wrapped in the grapple cable. "Bad dog, spider thing," she said, grinning, and fumbled at the grapple gun to retract, and pulled the trigger. The cord tightened rapidly, drawing the legs together. The tarantula howled and lost its balance and crashed into the series of workbenches. The giant mutant whimpered still. Kim grinned again and holstered the grapple gun. Then she turned to see Dee and Amy buried by assorted rodents. She stifled the urge to laugh. There was a clanging sound as she felt a sharp pain in her shoulder as the hypno-gun bounced off the wall and connected with her. Then there was a hiss and the liquid inside the gun injected into Kim's body. The gun slipped off of Kim's shoulder and clattered to the floor. Kim frowned and then looked at her Dover Amy. What was in that? Amy then looked at Dover and Kim and smirked. "Oh, you'll find out eventually, but first," she held up the remote and pressed a button to it. "Emergency destruct system activated. 20 seconds to total devastation," came a computerized voice. Amy giggled madly and began running towards the exit of the lab. Kim pulled the grapple gun again and fired into the roof. "Ron, get the animals out." "Check," Ron replied. He and Rufus began chasing the animals that were still miling around towards the exit. Kim kicked off the floor and swung towards Amy's retreating from. Behind them, segments of the lab began exploding, and Kim reached the top of the upswing, disconnected the grapple line, and flipped down through the air. She collided with Amy, and the two rolled out of the lab, on down to the side of the mountain where it was hidden in. Ron and Rufus soon joined afterwards, chasing the last thing of the animals out. Right as the lab exploded in the earnest, the shockwave sent all four of them rolling down the mountain slide, down towards the area where the authorities were conveniently waiting for them. The police took Amy into custody and hauled her off. Strangely, Amy didn't protest as she was being taken into custody. She was placed in the back of the police cruiser. Kim walked up to her. "What was that in my gun, Amy?" she asked, frowning. "Oh, nothing for you to worry about," Amy answered. "You might actually find it rather fun." Amy grinned again and then sat in the back seat and wouldn't say anything further. An officer closed the door and the police cruiser pulled away, leaving Kim staring after it, wondering what had been Amy up to. "All clear, Kim," Wade said, checking over the communicator. "The scan shows nothing unusual. Looks like whatever Dee and Amy was working on was a dud, or was meant to work on the ferrets." "Well, that's a relief," Kim said. "What about the notebook?" "That's the bad news," Wade replied. "It looks like it got burned up in the explosion of the lab." "Great," Kim sighed. "Well, maybe you could see if you can get us a ride to London. Lord Utterson is want an explanation." "Can do," Wade said. "I'll call you back as soon as it's set up." "Please and thank you," Kim said brightly, before signing off. She turned to look to where Ron and the authorities were sifting through the wreckage of Dee and Amy's lab. "Any luck?" Ron looked up and waved the blackened rectangle. "I found the notebook, KP, but I don't think it's going to be much of a help to Lord What's-His-Name." He then opened the book, and a shower of burned paper fell into the ground. "I hope it isn't too valuable," Kim said. At this point, the communicator beeped. "Go, Wade. I have Lord Utterson on the line. He says he wants to talk to you." Kim inhaled deeply. "Okay, put him on." Wade winked out, replaced by a distinguishedly elderly man, impressive mustache. When he spoke, his voice was clipped and proper. "Ah, Miss Possible. Lord Utterson here. I understand that you found the notebook that was stolen from my vaults." "Yes, we did, Lord Utterson," Kim replied. "But, there's a small problem." "Problem? It didn't fall into the hands of someone else's hands, did it?" The nobleman's voice had an edge of panic to it. "I made it quite clear that we needed to get that notebook out of circulation as quickly as possible." No, Kim said quickly. "The notebook's still here, but unfortunately, it was kind of casualty at the rescue efforts," Ron said, appearing next to Kim and holding up the remains of the notebook. "Exploding lab, last second escape. You know the drill." There was a pause and Lord Utterson let out a sigh. "Well, that's all right then." Kim blinked. "Pardon?" "The truth is the matter is we were planning on destroying it once you return it to us. We really should have done so when my great-grandfather first acquired it. but I'm afraid our family has always been something of a gang of pack rats. So you aren't mad that we got the notebook back? Ron asked. Lord Utterson chuckled. Not at all, my dear boy. If anything, we should pay you a fee of taking it off our hands. That wouldn't be necessary, Lord Utterson, Kim said quickly. World-saving crimes comes free of charge. Well, if I can be of service to you, dear, please don't hesitate to call. Thank you so much, Lord Utterson. Glad to be of service. Have a good evening, Miss Possible. You too. The communicator screen went dark, and Kim sighed in relief and leaned up against Ron. Oh, thank God. Yeah, who knew? Ron said. So, now what do you want to do? Honestly, I'm beat. The tarantula took it out of me, and I just want to go home, have a hot bath, and go to bed. Mind if I flake on the usual post-mission Bueno Nacho visit? No problem, KP, Ron said. I was going to ask if we could skip it myself. Mom and Dad have another dinner date with a couple of guys from Dad's office, so I need to keep an eye on Hannah. Figured how to keep her off the ceiling yet? Kim asked as the two of them walked towards Kim's car. No, but the bungee cords and the harness seemed to keep her in line, Ron answered. Kim giggled and gave her boyfriend a kiss on the cheek. Just make sure you remember to attach the cords to something secure this time. How much do you know more of owe your parents for that sofa? My next free paychecks, Ron sighed. Of all the times Dad has to go on a personal responsibility kick, is not the older brother hyperactive super ninja baby enough? Apparently not according to your dad, Kim said, deactivating the alarm on the car and getting in. Ron then followed suit on the passenger side. Are you sure you don't want me to come over and help? Nah, you look beat. I mean, Dee and Amy pulled out all the Ron's sick stops and that thing. You need to get some rest. Han and I can cope with it. Okay, but I'm warning you. Once I get in that tub, the communicator goes off for the rest of the night. Ha! Ron snorted. Come on, KP. I've dealt with her before. How much worse can it be? Hannah, you put that energy fireball back wherever you got it from, right? Ah! Kim sighed as she sank to the water of the hot tub, enjoying the warmth as it seeped into her skin, and the scent from the lavender blue bubble bath had poured onto the tub. She unstrapped the communicator off her wrist and set it to her side, after setting it to emergencies only. She leaned back on the tub and rested her head on the edge and closed her eyes. She began breathing deeply, using a Buddhist meditation technique that she had learned during from an unexpected layover in Nepal following a mission some years before. Her mind left adrift, idly flitting into the subject to subject. She felt her mind begin to sip deeper into the warmth, comforting darkness behind her eyelids. Her breathing slowed, then becoming slower, and slower still. Who killed Robin? I, said the sparrow. With my bow and arrow, I killed Robin. Kim's eyes then snapped open as she sat up in the tub, sending the water out onto the floor. She blinked a few times, trying to get her bearings. As she did, there was a knock on the door, and Kim's mother's voice came through it. Kim, are you alright? You've been in there for an hour. An hour? Kim thought. She grabbed the communicator and looked at the display on the screen. Wow, I must have been even more tired than I thought. I better get out of here before I drown. I'm fine, Mom, she called out as she got out of the tub and toweled herself off. I guess I dozed off. Well, okay, her mother replied. Do you need anything? No, I'm good. I think I'm going to go to bed now, though, Kim replied, pulling on her pajamas. She grabbed the communicator and opened the door, revealing her mother, Anne. Thanks for the concern, though, Mom. Anne smiled as Kim exited out of the bathroom. It's all part of the mom job description. Sleep well, Kimmy. Thanks, Mom. Night. Kim headed up the stairs to her room as she entered and set the communicator back to standard mode, in case if Wade got a late-night hit on that site needed the immediate attention. She pulled the covers back over her head, climbed in, enjoying the feeling of the cool sheets on her bare feet. She turned out the light and rolled over. In just a few minutes, she was sound asleep. She woke up the next morning in a steady motel room, as her vision focused on as she realized she wasn't in her bedroom. She sat up on the bed and looked around in a panic. Typical steady motel room. elderly TV, 2 beds, particle board dresser and nightstand. She twisted slightly in bed and winced before the dull pain hit her side. She looked down at herself and saw she was wearing a black t-shirt that she knew she hadn't worn to bed the night before. She lifted her shirt up and saw a large purple bruise that was developing just below her ribs. Where did I get that from? And how did I get here? Wait a minute, am I wearing anything besides this t-shirt? Kim lifted up the covers and saw the moderate sense of relief. She had a pair on of blue panties. She dropped the covers and saw blue flare jeans and her socks on the shoes on the floor. She pulled the covers off of herself and began putting on her pants. She checked the pockets and let out a sigh of relief that she found her card keys in one of them. As she was putting on her shoes, a phone from the nightstand rang. She hesitated for a moment, and then she picked up the receiver. Hello? Hello, came a choppy recorded voice. This is front desk calling, reminding you that your checkout time is at 11 a.m. You have 10 minutes until this time. Thank you for staying with us at the Blue Rose Motel. The Blue Rose Motel? I know where that is. I'm in Lowerton, but how the hell did I get to Lowerton? Kim hung up the phone and then finished tying her shoes. She spotted the room and the key card on the small table near the door and picked it up. She debated on whether or not just to leave the card in the room and take off. She decided against it. She had no idea if the room had been paid for or not. She left the room and made her way to the office. The desk clerk looked up as she entered. Hi there, can I help you? He asked. Kim dropped the key card on the desk. Oh yeah, I'm checking out of room 215, she said uncertainly. Oh, you must be the cousin, the desk clerk said, taking the key and placing it on the box labeled checkouts. She said that you were going to come by and pick her up. Oh yeah, I guess I am, Kim replied, not understanding what the desk clerk was saying. Yeah, she was interesting. I had to cover the shift last night. She showed up after that brawl at the bar down the road. Figured that she was involved in it, since she was limping, but she all had a grin on her face, and she said she had a great time, but she needed a place to crash for the night. I see, Kim said. Don't say anything. Don't show him how freaked out you are. She told me she left her car at the bar, but she didn't say which one. Her boyfriend is going to come by later to pick it up. Oh yeah, it's the Shamrock Lounge, a couple of blocks north from here. Better tell him to hurry. The guy who owns the place hates it when people leave their cars here they're past 10 o'clock. Oh yeah, thanks. Kim reached for her pocket and pulled out for her wallet. How much do you need for the room? Huh? The clerk looked perplexed. Oh no, don't worry about it. She paid it in cash last night for the room, so you're all set. Oh, okay, thanks. Kim waved as she left the office, and as she did, the store clerk watched her and frowned. Boy, she really admired her cousin to dress like her, she said. As Kim approached the Shamrock Lounge, she saw that her car was parked in the lot, and she noted a huge picture window in front of the bar was shattered, leaving only a gaping hole. A burly middle-aged man was nailing a piece of plywood over the gaping hole. Kim quietly made her way to the car, trying not to attract attention herself. She unlocked the door and was about to get in when the man noticed her. Hey you, with that nutcase who trashed my place last night. Kim looked up at the man. Sorry? The owner of the bar walked over to her. The ever red-headed was dressed like you. She showed up last night with the car, came here, got trashed, and started a brawl. Broke my window and juice box, and about 100 glasses. Who's gonna pay for it, huh? That was my cousin, sir. I loaned her car to her last night, but she caught a cab at home, so I came to get it. Cousin, huh? The bar owner frowned. Well, you can tell your cousin of yours that if I see her in my place again, I'm calling the cops. I run a nice quiet place joint here, and I don't want any more problems. Got it? Yes, sir, Kim said. The bar owner snorted and stormed back to the window, allowing Kim to get in the car and drove off as quickly as it should seem polite. As she drove back towards Middleton, she activated the car's inbuilt communicator. Wade, she asked. Kim, where are you? I've been trying to get a hold of you all morning. Your parents are freaking out. I'm in Lowerton, Wade. Do me a favor. After you put my parents on and I figure out what to tell them, call Ron and tell him that I'm going to be meeting him at his place. Then check any emergency surveillance video from the communicator last night and just tell me what the hell happened to me. Gotcha, Wade replied. I've got your parents on the line. Kim took a deep breath and tried to relax. Okay, put them on. Wade disappeared from the screen and it was replaced by Kim's parents, Kimberly and Possible. Where just exactly you are? Her father said sternly. You better brace yourself, Kim, Wade said. I've got some video from the communicator while you were sleeping last night. Ron slid closer to Kim in order to see the video on the communicator screen. The two of them were at Ron's place sitting on his bed, and it had taken a lot of fast talking, but Kim had been able to convince her parents that she did have an appointment to do volunteer park cleanup in Lowerton, but she'd forgotten about it until early that morning. Even so, she had been given a 45-minute lecture on scaring the daylights out of her parents and making sure someone knew where she was. And she was sure she had just barely avoided getting grounded into the next month. We better find out what happened from this, Kim said. I don't think they're going to buy my story if it happens again. The perspective on the video was slightly off, as the communicator was on in Kim's nightstand the whole time, but it was able enough to see some movement as Kim got up from her bed. The scene was a shadow, but Kim's outline can be seen from what the little light drifted from the window. Ron frowned. KP, something's not right. You're right, Kim agreed, frowning herself. I don't move like that. Kim on the screen then stood right in front of the window. She seemed to be looking around and marveling at their arms. She turned away back from the window and walked back towards the nightstand. An arm appeared on the screen and turned the light on, as the video began to shake, indicating that the communicator was being picked up. There was more movement, and then a face filled the screen. Kim and Ron stared at the face in the screen. The face looked similar to Kim's, but the features were sharper. The face was leaner, and the cheeks and the chin were slightly more pointed. The eyebrows were thicker than Kim's, and the hair was much more darker shade of red. A couple of rear-end bangs flopping over the left eye, with the usual wave of hair. But the most striking feature about Kim-like face was the eyes. Instead of Kim's usual forest green, the eyes were starting to have a shade of purple. A purple that almost glowed. Hello, said the girl on the screen. She tapped it a couple times. Are you watching me, Wade? Shame on you. What would Kimmy think? I know what I think. And you should be ashamed of yourself, Wadekins. No more peeping for you tonight. I have other plans. Ta! There was an electronic squeal, and then the screen went dark. Wade's image reappeared on the screen. Who was that? Kim demanded. How did she get in my room? KP, Ron began. I think she is you. Kim looked up at Ron incredulously. Don't be ridiculous, Ron. Okay, she's a similarity, but that's not me. Wade then cleared his throat. Actually, Kim, Ron's right. What? Kim said, looking back at the communicator screen. What? Ron echoed. Kim, I checked the timestamps on the motion detectors you asked me to install in the house after the whole Diablo thing, Wade began. No one else came into your room except you. No one left it except her. Plus, well, she's wearing your pajamas in the video. But I didn't start that brawl, Kim protested. I went to bed and then I woke up at the motel. I should have remembered going to the bar, much less starting fighting there. Suddenly Kim stiffened up and began to twitch. Ron frowned. Kim, are you okay? Should I get your mom? He asked, taking her by the shoulders. Kim shook her head and began taking deep breaths. After a few minutes, she calmed down and looked back at Ron. I'm fine, Kim said. No, you're not fine, Ron said. You just had a fit and you're changing forms when you sleep. Kim then looked at Ron. Look, Ron, I'm not pretending to know what happened, but this is just ridiculous. Nobody just changes into someone new and does not have any memory of it. How else are you supposed to explain what we saw then? I don't know, Kim yelled. If I did, we wouldn't be having this conversation. All right, just calm down, KP, Ron said, taken aback. Kim blinked and then deflated. Sorry, Ron. I'm just so freaked out right now. I just want to know what's happening. Ron slid closer to Kim and pulled her close. Hey, we'll figure it out. We always do. Guys, Wade said. Hate to interrupt, but we just got a hit on the site. Duff Killigan just took the clubhouse at Pebble Beach hostage. Kim then broke away from Ron and stood up. On our way, Wade. I'll keep checking the video. Maybe I could spot something we missed on our first round go. Good idea, Wade. Thanks. Kim turned to Ron. Come on, Ron. Let's go kick some kilt. Booyah, Ron said, getting up from his bed and heading for his closet. Duff Killigan was a happy man, infuriating with Pebble Beach Golf Course clubhouse, disguised as a janitor, had been a piece of cake. A well-hit exploding golf balls filled the knockout gas that took care of most of the patrons, and the batches that he had hidden around the grounds were just keeping the authorities at bay. And to top it all off, he had the top pro golfer of the world tied up in front of his own press display. By contrast, Leopold Forrest was not a happy man. He had been promoting his new endorsement deal with the Tiltis and had been making a publicity appearance. When a deranged Scotsman had crashed in the press conference and was sent to everyone to sleep with some kind of knocked-out gas. And now he was tied into an office chair, gagged as a deranged Scot marched around, making demands on his cell phone. Aye, you hear me corrected, laddie, Killigan said. If you want your champion back, you'll have $20 million deposited into the account number. I have emailed this to this agent. And I want it in the next 3 hours. Otherwise, the villain Dylan turned to face the golfer and grinned. Well, let's just say I give a new meaning to the phrase, a hole in one. 3 hours, starting now. Killigan clicked off the phone and then turned to Leopold. Well, now it's your trust me, laddie, he said, striding over to the dressed-up pro. And there's something I've always wanted to do. Killigan's grin widened as he walked over to one of the bags of the golf clubs set next to a podium. He selected a 5-iron and hit it up. Menacingly, Leopold's eyes widened as Killigan leaned in close, holding a head of the club up between them. Would you say titanium or graphite makes the best club for your 5-iron? Killigan asked. Suddenly, Leopold blinked. Killigan then took another few steps back. No, I'm quite serious. I've been playing this sport for years, and I cannot figure it out whether it's the heads or my stance that's causing my 5 shots to slice something awful. Killigan assumed that this golfing stance took a couple of demonstrative swings. What do you think, laddie? Suddenly the doors to the banquet hall burst open, revealing Kim and Ron. Kim grinned at Killigan's expression. I'd say it'll take more than a couple of trips from a pro to fix your game, Killigan, Kim said, as she went into a battle stance as Ron tried to do the same. Kim's confident grin, however, changed to a frown as Killigan's expression did the reverse. He pulled a golf ball up from the pouch on his kilt and dropped it onto the floor. Oh, yeah? I think you'll find my game's improved, Lasse. 4! He swung the 5-iron ball and sailed into the archway above the door, exploding on impact. Kim then dove to one side and shoved Ron out of the archway. Back into the hall, the structure of the archway gave away, sending debris flying everywhere, and a large chunk fell down on the wall into Kim. KP! Ron cried. Leopold said through his gag as a flying piece of plywood flew in the air and hit him in the face, knocking him onto the floor out and cold. Killigan let out a triumphant laugh as he made his way over to the rubble of the wall. He held a 5-iron like cane and leaned over, addressing the rubble. Well, Lassie, what do you think of my short game now? He said smugly. A hand shot up from the rubble, clutching Killigan around the neck. The mad golfer gasped as he felt his windpipe being crushed. A figure clad in Kim's mission clothes rose from the rubble. Purple eyes glittered in the sunlight. Blood-red hair flew down from her head. Her mouth was twisted up into a sadistic grin. Ah, Killigan gasped. KP? Ron's voice came from the other side of the rubble. Kim, are you okay? The woman's grin widened as she looked at Killigan's terrified voice. Sorry, Ronnie. Kimmy can't talk right now. She then loosened the grip on Killigan's throat, and then he fell onto the floor, gasping for air. The woman then picked up the 5-iron and twirled around it like a baton. She took a few steps around Killigan. Nice club there, good hef. Great balance. She then took a stance in front of Killigan, and now grinned again. Now, she said, let me show you my short game.